Hello, I'm Keith McDonald. For almost 30 years, I used to work here at the City of Toronto. I did tours of duty with public health, special events, strategic communications, the City Clerk's Office, and information and technology, ultimately as the Open Data lead for the Open Data Initiative. And then I left the city, and now I'm just a citizen at large.
So we will take.
They're expecting to be here tomorrow.
Oh, really? So we will take.
They're expecting to be here tomorrow.
Oh, really?
All right, well, welcome to part 3 of our vlog on deposing for the Executive Committee. The meeting was for December 1st. The item was open data. It was number 19 on an agenda that went well beyond 19, and it specifically had to do with what's going on in the open data work with the city. There was mention in the report of planning to come and various other things relating to what the Executive Committee talked about in May and also what the Government Management Committee talked about in February. So being a free man in Paris, I wanted to speak and talk about what I thought would be important to relate to the Executive Committee about the Open Data Initiative. And you may recall, we were called, but it was late and we weren't there. So nonetheless, they dealt with the item, so we'll have some comments on that. And let's just take a look. Actually, something that, watching the clip back, I realized is that actually Councillor Ainsley did indicate that we were under a different impression. We thought that it would be tomorrow. Let's just take a quick look.
So we will take.
They're expecting to be here tomorrow.
Oh, really?
So I think that's significant. I mean, at least I felt better that it was relayed that we weren't just, blowing off the deputation. So now let's move into actually what happened. So they were going to deal with the item regardless, and here's what they did.
We'll take it into committee. Any questions of staff? Seeing none. Speakers.
I have a motion to move.
Okay.
Sorry, it's on the screen. The City Council direct the Deputy City Manager and Chief Financial Officer and the Chief Information Officer to report to the March 7, 2017 Executive Committee meeting on an update progress report on the Open Data Strategic Plan, and B, to report to the June 19, 2017 Executive Committee meeting with a definitive assessment with tangible results and delivery commitments. And so this is, just to speak briefly about this is part of the Open Data Initiative that the city's been working on. We have an Open Data plan that we've been working on. This is asking, as we're moving this forward, for some firm benchmarks and target guidelines that need to be added into this.
Can I ask some questions?
Yep.
So the staff report want to receive this. Why don't you just want to receive this?
Sorry?
The recommendation is to receive.
Correct. And this is to put some more firm deadlines in it.
So, and this is just
One of the
my concern is March 7th Executive Committee means the staff have to report back pretty much. You have to write a report in January to be ready for February. And my thinking is, Councillor, that the report, there's not enough time, and it's such a short span of time. Maybe you should push that back a little bit so you'll get something a little bit more fulsome than nothing has really changed.
So the staff have seen this and from the IT department, and they're okay with it.
Are they? Where are the staff?
Through you, more time is always better than less time, but we'll do what we can. Yep.
He's the CFO.
No, I understand that. It's just my.
He's not the
thinking
tech
is
guy.
This is December, right? To get a report done and filed for February.
I understand.
You're going to have 30 days, and
So do you want to
is
say,
a lot going to get done in 30 days?
I didn't manage.
do you want to say April?
More time, as I said, is
April?
always better. April would be better.
Okay,
Please.
so I will amend it to April.
All right. All right. No further speakers. Mr. Mayor.
Only to say this, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'm going to strongly support the amendment, and which I guess becomes the motion in addition to receiving this report, because I think on this we're not ahead on this.
No.
We're behind. And I learn this everywhere I go, including in Israel and in Canada, other places. And I think the notion of having some more deadlines, as much as our staff try hard to do all of these different kinds of things, I think it's a good thing. And so another month is not going to make that big a difference, but I think the notion of having a deadline for a report on the plan and on progress for same next spring is a really good idea. And I plan to enthusiastically vote for Councillor Ainsley's motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll take the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That's the item? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's take first the idea of staff. Where is staff? The person speaking basically for staff was the deputy city manager, financial area, and some staff were present, but not staff involved in that report. So if the community is going to depose, shouldn't staff involved in issuing the report also have to hang in? Question mark. You can decide what the answer should be. As well, I would have wanted the city manager to be in attendance. He was through most of the meeting, certainly in dealing with the items that he needed to be there for. But one of the things that I did want to suggest was that actually the city manager goes on record as supporting the initiative. It certainly looks like you can infer that the mayor is, and staff could start quoting the mayor, that the mayor is behind this initiative. But it would also be excellent if you could quote the city manager. In fact, I had an experience while working in the city where I was city managerized by a staff person working in the city manager's office, where they actually said, "Hey, do you want me to tell the city manager that your answer is no?" This was on the telephone, of course. And I have to confess, as an employee, no, I don't want you to go back to the city manager and tell him the answer is no. So there's a lot of clout going beyond the level that was suggested in the report. And what's interesting about the report, and I've got it in my hands right here, was a lot of reference was made to coming. It's coming in their strategic plan. And I think it's great that the motion was passed to bring them back and discuss. And an interim phase also is important before a final phase. Because, it keeps the nose to the grindstone, right? They'll keep working on the report. It's interesting, too, there was just a sidebar reference from one of the other councillors that they could manage that. There was an indication that it could be done. What I find interesting, even on behalf of the chair as a councillor, the whole issue of time, I think, in city time versus other time that citizens work with, is very different. We're in December. There was a request to come back in March. And the way the process works, of course, is you can't just produce the report on March 6th and give it to them for the March 7th meeting. You have to backtrack a little bit. That is true. But December, January, and part of February, that's close to 2.5 months, would be available to progress as an update statement from where you are now. I personally believe it was doable. If I was a staff person still working there, I certainly would say we could do it. We could do it. My opinion, again, maybe not shared by other staff members. Whatever. Secondly, one of the things that I did want to say was in reference to planning itself, and that is bring the community into planning. Not the minutiae of the planning, but planning where you're talking about community needs and things you might do to assist the process for the users. In an open data, it's for users to use the data. I really wanted to emphasize that should be happening, and there was no real indication that that is happening. And I think I'm not speaking out of school when I could say it was discussed and advocated for, but the green light was never given. And it's not a case of finding people from the community to participate. The issue is inviting them. And there is an open data committee, of course, and there could be some means of guest visits or interaction anyway at that level, or think tanks. There's many ways you could engage the community, but it needs to be engaged formally for the planning process. So that's one of the things that I wanted to say, and was hopeful that perhaps a recommendation could come forward. Nonetheless, that's not going to happen, and perhaps when they come back in April now, there'll be some evidence of interaction with the community. Who knows? We'll see. What's interesting about the process, I think, when you're looking at an open data initiative such as this and coming at it now from the outside instead of the inside, is you can really start to feel for where the community is at. And where they are right now and where I am right now is what I'd call radio silence. In fact, even knowing that this report was going to come back to that committee, it wasn't tweeted, it wasn't really announced by the inside open data folk. And what's cool about open data, of course, is it theoretically, not even theoretically, it is an open process. So it's somewhat discouraging to see the communications side suffer and not just go about that in an open, kind of transparent way. don't want to get preachy, but I can understand now when the community would say, hey, what are you doing? Tell me what you're doing. Tell me what you're doing. It's something that you've got a lot of interest in. There's literally thousands of developers. Some are more active than others, but that kind of interaction, it goes back to the idea of getting them involved and working together. Probably enough said on that. That ends part 3. Coming up, by the way, is the Police Services Board in December, and we'll have some comments on that. It gives a chance to come back and talk about the things that unfolded at that first meeting, which is interesting as well because you can depose when you come back and talk about the things where you weren't allowed to discuss because, you get your few minutes and that's it. I mentioned that in the first blog. You can't actually engage in dialogue after the fact. So it's kind of interesting to review what they did say and be able to respond. Nonetheless, thanks for watching. I'm Keith. We'll see you next time.